We bring the skipper on board. Congratulations. You were right, Mike. It was historic last night. The first time in Padres franchise history, 3 straight walk-off home runs at Petco Park. Hey, that was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, yeah. I've never experienced anything like that. So you felt like pretty rare. So organization's been around for a while, but man, pretty cool.
It's definitely cool, and I was, obviously watching the game last night, and I thought to myself when it happened, it was such a sigh of relief. I know you had to be feeling it too. I know Jeremiah Estrada probably feeling it as well, and what a gamer he was to step up last night and take the ball, Skip. And for you though, you know, and everybody knows that's not the best sustainable way to win baseball games in the future. But I'll sure take them over losses right now.
Yeah, I think that's pretty clear. Not sustainable, but look, you win games in weird ways, and you play 162 games, man. You're going to have different kind of games, and I think we've all seen that following baseball over the years. And it was a game we're just glad to come on the good side of.
Got home runs from both Manny and Tatis. I mean, that is such a welcome sight for Padres fans. But I want to talk about Jackson Merrill and this recent power surge because, I remember kind of hearing the scouting reports going, at some point in his career, this guy might, develop some power to go with all the other tools that he has, but didn't expect kind of to happen right away. 6 home runs in 8 games. Are you seeing anything, different from Jackson? Where is this coming from right now?
Jackson's throwback is kind of maybe not a great way of describing it, but my point I'm getting at, first of all, he did something that only Willie Mays has done. God rest his soul. Passing of an obvious legend and a real miss for our game. But what an icon and what an example of greatness on and off the field. But what I'm getting at with Jackson, 100 years ago when I was doing this and the game was played a little differently and taught a little differently, right or wrong, in general, guys like Jackson or guys just in general would learn how to hit. They learn how to hit the ball the other way. They learn how to, be a good hitter. And then the power would come, and they would learn how to get comfortable and, pick their spots. And they had a stroke that allowed them to use the whole field, which allowed them to have consistent at bats. And then, as we all know, the game morphed into more of an all or nothing outcome. Well, in that case, I think Jackson's a little bit of a throwback. He's a guy that has really good bat-to-ball skills, values that, just trying to take good at-bats, getting his hits, getting on base, taking what the game gives him. And now is, maturing quickly, I would add into learning how to drive the ball. I don't like to compare players, but Jimmy Evans was like that. If you follow his career, didn't hit a lot of minor league homers, didn't hit a lot of power, and ended up becoming a borderline Hall of Famer, and a guy that ended up having some big moments with some big power. But he came up learning how to hit, and that was a little bit more of the way it used to be, and that's what Jackson has done.
Do you see it, Skip, getting back to that a little bit? I mean, you got guys like Stephen Kwan, you got guys like, your very own Luis Ariz, you got Jackson Merrill. Are you seeing maybe a little bit of a return to, hit first, power later?
I'm not seeing some kind of trend that oh man, we're going back to that. I do see more of it. I do think the game, I haven't had as much touch points with them, being able to travel around and see minor leagues. And last offseason, I didn't spend as much time as typical, and I will this year going to, a lot of my high school and coaching friends and seeing their programs and talking to them. Because I always typically do, talk to what the players are like and what's taking place and scouts and what's coming up, because that's the future of our game. And I'm always curious about, we say things trickle down, but really, players and philosophies and how amateurs are playing, a lot of that, how they're thinking, how they're being trained, that typically trickles up. So the point I'm getting is I don't know if it's taking place or trending in that direction. I do see some teams, us being one of them, having a little bit more of a holistic approach to hitting, using the whole field. So I do see that philosophy coming back a little bit in certain areas of the game. But I couldn't tell you if the players are trending that way or not.
Mike, I want to ask you about your bullpen. I made this point earlier that simply in terms of volume of games, you guys have played more than anybody else in baseball. Less off days, more games, quite a bit more than some teams, like 7 more than other teams at this point. I'm not saying that I'm not overreacting to 1 or 2 games this past week, but, your bullpen has been worked a lot. There's been some ups, there's been some downs. What are you kind of seeing in terms of how you can get a little more consistency out of the pen, and are you anticipating a move to try to bring some reinforcements here?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into AJ's space about the move. I got my hands full as it is. He's on top of our club, and I like our club. This is something that you'll probably ask me in another 3 to 4 weeks, and I'll give a similar answer. But it's a legitimate question, and I get it. And it's a fairly, overall, it's a general question. I'll give you a simple, what I see as a simple and general answer. Bullpens are as good as the starting pitching. And that's just the fact of the matter, and when you have, not solely, I won't say that, so it'll be a longer answer, but at the starting point, if starters go deeper in games, then you keep your bullpen fresh. And when your bullpen's fresh, they're usually more efficient. Pretty common, right? Pretty basic.
Sure.
And, it's also interesting because, rightfully so, so if you don't get starting pitching going past, 4 or 5 innings consistently, which I think 4 of our last starts, look, I like our starters. It's just, the other side's trying too. We face some good clubs, we've had some good approaches, they're competing their tail off, but, their bullets get spit, and then you get to a certain point in the game where you got to make a decision, and sometimes you ride your starter a little bit longer because your bullpen is a little depleted. But you get 4 out of 5 games, and you're in your bullpen in the 4th or 5th inning, and you're in a stretch of games where, we had 13, day off, now we're 13. To your point, we played more games than anybody in the game, starting early with in Seoul. So, your bullpen's going to get a little taxed, and then you're going to, because of that, the dominoes get out of place a little bit in the sense of, giving guys rest. Like, it's just the case. The guys have to pitch and have to carry the mail, and sometimes they're not as effective. And then the other side of that, on the bullpen side of it, that they have ownership in is, and we all have ownership in it, make sure they're put in the right place, but it's being efficient when they're in there. And when you're a little more fatigued, or and I feel like we've done a good job outside of Jeremiah going 3 of passing the ball around, and not trying to sacrifice, them for competition, and still try to win games, which, is clearly the end goal. Marrying those two is a Hatfield McCoy marriage some days, and so them being efficient allows them to be able to bounce back and not have to use another guy to get through it to win games. And the wrap-up point about bullpens is, I say people understand, but in the moment or in a silo, I've said this before, and it's a great example. It was given to me more recently. Just sitting in a video game, where, yeah, I can bring this guy in and he's fresh and he can just pitch. And these guys can't pitch every day. And like I said, we push guys, to go answer. And they know there's going to be times in the season relievers. Randy Choate, older left-handed reliever, used to have a T-shirt that said "Relievers are people too." So it's a long answer to your question, but bullpen, that's broad strokes, simple way of putting it, and what can be a somewhat a complex way of operating. But it's just interesting to me how people do view bullpens, and having done it for 25, 30 years, however long, it's that's my high level answer to it.
Talking to Mike Shildt, skipper of the San Diego Padres, here on Ben and Woods this morning, and listen, I'm typically the guy that I don't want to use the word blame, But I put the responsibility on the guys. Hey, can you go today? You can? Great. Give me what you got. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I tend to kind of put it on the players, the guys that are actually executing the pitches, and in some cases, Skip, not executing the pitches. I wanted to ask about one in particular. You've managed a lot of guys. You've managed a lot of left-handers out of the bullpen. A guy like Yuki Matsui, who early in the season, very, very effective and has maybe gotten a little less so, walking too many guys, I think, for probably everybody's liking right now. How do you get him back on track? And it's got to be a kind of a tougher call and a higher leverage situation for you to go to Yuki right now. How do you get him back going again?
Well, a couple things about the tougher call. I mean, I'm going to go back to my previous answer. It's not a silo of when you can put these guys in, right? Like, so sometimes it's just you have 2 or 3 guys. That's the other thing that is super fun for my chair.
Sure.
Is when people are like, you can't pitch. I'm not talking about Yuki because I'll get to Yuki in a minute. Yuki's going to be fine. But it's just interesting when, this guy's pitching. There's not anybody else to pitch some days. And so that part's just a sidebar for my chair that's super fun.
I bet.
But anyway, Yuki, listen, he's similar to a fair amount of guys in our bullpen, and this is the other part that is just real. There's a learning curve. No one loves a learning curve in the big leagues on any team that's looking to compete in any sport. No one wants to hear it. And I wish it didn't have to happen. But the fact of the matter is, learning curves are real. This is the top of the people's profession, and Yuki's come in and he's had some really good moments for us. Sometimes we forget those. And we do expect these guys to be absolutely on point every single time. We get frustrated when it doesn't happen. And I get it. People, we care. We all care. We want the best, and I expect the best. So don't misinterpret. But I'm also realistic that, he's been really good. He's helped us out in big spots this year. So I don't forget that and draw from that and draw from his experience in Japan being a closer. And then conversely, it's his first year in the big leagues. It's his first year, figuring out what this all looks like, figuring out the hitters. And, oh, by the way, he's doing it in an entirely different culture. And that's the other thing that, I have the experience of understanding and seeing. And, look, guys, I ain't making no excuse for anybody. We get it. It's a bottom-line game. I understand that. But they are human, and he's in a different country, and he's making adjustments, in a lot of different areas. It takes a while, whether your player got traded, used to be in another team, become another country. There's just human. And so, Yuki's done well. He's also struggled with his consistency of his command, and that's the thing that he's working on the most. Is he trying too hard? Is he still feeling out what he's doing, certain role? All of that's true. But Yuki has got the stuff in the zone to get outs, and we just need to find that more consistently.
I think that learning curve comment is so interesting because we're seeing it before our eyes with Matt Waldren. And you talk about needing, a little more length from your starting pitching. You're getting it from Matt Waldren, and he's the guy that I think as fans, we didn't really expect that much from this season. But in spring training, you and AJ and the team, you chose him to be your 5th starter at that point. Did you have an idea that this was possible, just based on what you saw from him, early on this spring?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
You see the best version of guys. Now, you mentioned Estrada. You asked about Waldren. Like, we sat down with Jeremiah and said, hey, man, you can be a really good 8th inning guy based on your stuff. So go, Ruben Niebla does a great job. Ben Fritz, our bullpen coach, is tremendous as well. Had a clear plan for him. So getting back to Matty, Matty's got an elite pitch that, when it's hard to catch, it's got to be hard to hit, right? I mean, he got a big league catcher, and Higgy's his guy, and this guy's been in 17 years of professional baseball, and he does a great job with him. But occasionally, it's like, he's hanging on he's just along for the ride with this thing and just trying to corral it. He does, like I said, he's done a great job. But hard to catch, hard to hit, man. And so, and it's an outlier pitch. These guys aren't in the big leagues, aren't seeing it every day. And plus, he's coupled with a good sweeper that he can throw, and he's got a legitimate fastball. It's 90-93 that he can keep people honest with, and he can locate because he's a strike thrower with it. So, man, what a great combination. So you just know, all right, if this guy can get through, some of the learning curves of, understanding what a big league starter looks like on a consistent basis, routine, his pregame routine, and then the feeling out process of how much to throw it, how hard to throw it, when to throw it, when to mix his other pitches in, and he's able to get it in the zone, and you're starting to see what we're seeing now. So, that's the reason he's on the club.
Talking to the skipper, Mike Shildt here on Ben and Woods this morning, and I know you're not on Twitter, but you know who John Boy Media is. I couldn't let you off the hook this morning without asking you about
he knew this was coming.
The lip-reading video. I'm sure you've seen it. I wonder if the players have asked you about it. I had to bring it up, your ejection in New York the other day. Have you seen this clip?
I have not.
Oh, he hasn't seen it.
Boy. I'll get it to you.
I have heard about it.
Okay, you have heard. All right. So you know what I'm talking about. I'm not completely going in blind here.
I know. Look, I was ejected. I know what I said. So
yeah,
that's true. You didn't know that everyone else is going to know what you said, though.
That's exactly right. Do you feel a little violated by that whole thing?
I've gotten over that violation. I don't love it. I don't know how it was interpreted. The same guy, which he's doing his gig. Everybody's got a gig, and that's fine. He caught me in Chicago years ago in a similar fashion, so I know it exists. Maybe I've got to be, covering my mouth.
Mike, the title of the video was "Manager Politely Asks to Be Ejected."
Yeah, that was the title.
You're a nice man.
You're a nice guy.
It's not the worst thing.
It's nothing to apologize for, in my opinion.
I'm not. Yeah, I don't apologize. I mean, listen, I think you're asking the question. No, Matsui, I don't. Listen, always have our guys' backs. I made it pretty clear using the expletive that typically comes out about the actual pitch.
Yes, you did.
Which Manny took exception with. I took exception with. I wanted it to be clear that there was an unhappiness that took place with the judgment. But then after that, it's like, look, I'm not going to, and sometimes I've got a good relationship in general with umpires, even though you probably see me yelling at them a lot.
Sure.
But overall, I've got a very respectful, rightfully, relationship with them. They have a hard job to do. And I grew up washing in shining shoes of umpires for, 6 years. And, hearing people yelling at them, banging on doors. And that was back in the day when, it was right beside a clubhouse and there was a little less security in Double-A. So I lived their lives and I empathize with the challenges they have. And so the point I'm ultimately getting at, I don't have a real reputation. I'll have some one-offs. Had one earlier. I'll probably have another where I'll really get into somebody if it's warranted. And yeah, it was warranted for the ejection and make sure that support our guy and make sure they know what we don't appreciate it. But my point is these guys won't throw. Not that they won't throw me out, but I gotta it's okay, man. You can. It's all right, So anyway, that was as much of what that looks like, and as Paul Harvey would say, now most of the rest.
Well,
of the
yeah,
story.
and our take was, people were worried. Was Manny really know that he's got his back?
Was Manny
if he's
mad?
not really, really mad, and we both said Manny more than any other player knows how things work. I mean, Manny knows exactly how these things work.
See, I find it interesting that I say it interesting. I don't know that the public opinion. People are clearly entitled to them. So it's interesting to me that people would even ask that because Wayno texted me, day after or later that night, and whenever it came out, and he's like, "That's I won't share the text." He's like, "You always got your guys back, checked in on me, but yeah, this is you, and he was complimentary about how it went down, and he was complimentary about taking care of Manny. So it's interesting. people can complain you didn't take care of them enough. Like, I should have.
No one doubts that you've got your players back.
Yeah.
Mike. That's the one thing no one could ever doubt. You've got your players back for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate it as always. We joked you're actually tougher on the reporters and the radio people than you are on the umpires.
That's right. Keep it coming.
Wait a minute. The radio people. Wait a minute.
Here we go.
Hey,
Here we go.
you guys need to be drug tested.
See, you're out of here.
Suffer on
You're
you.
gone.
That's true.
You're
actually.
gone. You've been ejected from this interview, Mike.
Yeah,
Thank you
Oh,
very
my
much.
gosh.
You wanted it.
You're on something.
You wanted it. Let's go. You're gone. Thanks
Good
so
luck
much,
tonight.
Skip. Appreciate
All right.
it.
Thank
All right,
you.
See you.
There he is, the skipper, Mike Shildt, our manager's report, brought to you by San Diego County Credit Union. It's not big bank banking, it's better.